So I talked about a story in which Nikki Haley had one of the biggest epic fails in the Security Council ever. Basically, she tried to make her own resolution that would condemn Hamas for the protests that happened in Israel. And what ended up happening was she went around begging the members of the Security Council to vote for her resolution. But what ended up happening is she was the only one to vote for her own resolution, which was absolutely fucking embarrassing. And Nikki Haley decided to pull out of the UN Human Rights Council, which is not the same as the Security Council, by the way. These are two separate things. But she decided to pull out of the UN Human Rights Council in a very embarrassing move. And it's fucking shitty. So fuck you, Nikki Haley. I despise of you. You're shit. But she decided to say, and she went after the UN analyzing poverty in the United States. So The Hill says U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley on Thursday dismissed a poverty report by the United Nations, saying it's ridiculous for the intergovernmental body to analyze American poverty. Quote, "It is patently ridiculous for the United Nations to examine poverty in America," Haley said in a letter to Senator Bernie Sanders. The special rapporteur wasted the UN's time and resources, deflecting attention from the world's worst human rights abusers and focusing instead on the wealthiest and freest country in the world. Okay, so there's multiple problems with this. So, by the way, it was Bernie Sanders who sent a letter to Nikki Haley saying, hey, could you show this UN report to Donald Trump because there's clear massive poverty in the United States and we need to try to work to solve that. And so Nikki Haley says, oh, it's disgusting, despicable. And she goes on to basically whine and bitch and moan about how, oh, you know, they were wrong, but doesn't point out any falsehoods, just said it was inaccurate, no falsehoods specifically named whatsoever. She's such a loser. She's so shitty at her job, and it pisses me off that our UN ambassador for the United States is such a piece of garbage like Nikki Haley, who doesn't give a fuck about diplomacy, doesn't give a fuck about U.S. poverty. She goes on to say, oh, U.S. poverty is an important thing, but hey, you know, the UN can't do this. You know, the UN can multitask, right? Especially when it comes to getting the biggest human rights abusers. Who are the biggest human rights abusers? Saudi Arabia, Israel, we're seeing in Yemen right now from Saudi Arabia. Think about this, man. On the Human Rights Council sits Saudi Arabia. I shit you not. I shit you not. They actually sit on the Human Rights Council, which is unbelievable. Unfucking believable. I mean, we know all the shit that's been happening in Saudi Arabia. Women just were able to drive, and I think they're having some complications with that now or something like that. But the idea that the UN can't analyze poverty in the United States is one of the dumbest things possible. And Nikki Haley is really, really poor at performing at her job. But Bernie Sanders was the one who sent her the letter attaching essentially this study saying, can you show this to Donald Trump? So good on Bernie Sanders for that, of course. But Nikki Haley, you are really bad at your job. And yes, the UN should be able to analyze poverty in the United States.